Hi, today I'm going to talk about the division rule for differentiation, or the differentiation division rule when you want to do this, okay? You don't want to do like the derivative of f of x divided by the derivative of g of x. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the derivative of f of x divided by g of x. So you're taking the derivative of the whole division, and you're taking the derivative with respect to x. So how do we do this? Well, I'm just going to make a quick reminder here that the derivative of something, the differentiation, is the f of a function, okay? The differentiation of a function of x equals f of x plus delta x minus f of x divided by delta x. Well, actually it's the limit of this, so I'm just going to put limit of this whole thing here as delta x approaches 0. All right, so here we go. We're going to do the same thing to the function. And what is the function? F of x divided by g of x. So this is going to be equal to f of x plus delta x divided by g of x plus delta x. Well, actually it's the limit. I always forget about this. It's the limit of this thing, okay? Minus f of x divided by g of x. All this divided by delta x as delta x approaches 0. So it's the limit of this whole thing here. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. This delta x in here, I'm just going to put it out. I'm going to get it out like this. Limit as delta x approaches 0 of what? Of 1 divided by delta x. So delta 1 divided by delta x, or delta x is going to be dividing the whole thing. This whole thing in here. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so we got to take the, I think it's called the minimum common denominator, right? So let's do that. I'm going to make a big, huge thing here. So what's the minimum common denominator of g x plus delta x and g of x? Well, it's just that. G x plus delta x times g of x. Okay? Now, going back to 5th grade, I don't know. G of x plus delta x, g of x divided by g of x plus delta x times this thing. So it's going to be f of x plus delta x times what? G of x. Why? I'm getting the denominator and I'm dividing by this denominator here. So g of x plus delta x, g of x divided by g of x plus delta x. The result's going to be g of x. So the result you multiply to the numerator, right? So f of x plus delta x times g of x minus, and here you have an f of x, which is this one here, times what? Times g of x plus delta x. Okay. So you have the limit of this whole thing, okay? All right. Now, let's see. I'm just gonna copy this, because rewriting this stuff all the time is just a pain. There. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to erase this thing here. And I'm going to extend the fraction part. And I'm going to do minus f. I got to keep the numerator the same, okay? So I'm going to subtract a term and add a term. Or add a term and subtract a term. It's the same thing. So let's just do this. Plus f of x g of x minus f of x g of x. And then people are going to say, but isn't that the same? Because you're just going to cancel these two out? Well, yeah, it's the same. It has to be. You can't just invent a term. If you invent a term, you have to subtract that term. You have to take it out. If you multiply a term that doesn't exist, you have to divide it, so you cancel it. All right? Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get these two terms in here. This one, the first one, and this one. Okay, I'm going to get these two terms. I'm going to close the parenthesis here. And what am I going to do? I'm going to group them together. So I'm just going to do this. This is getting confusing here. So I'm just going to group them together. So it'll be the limit as delta x approaches 0 of a bunch of things. So 1 divided by delta x times. Oh yeah, there's something else too. This 1 divided by delta x is multiplying the whole fraction, right? Oh yeah, okay. It's not just multiplying this term. Okay, this is multiplying this whole fraction here, look. This fraction here. Okay, so I'm going to get these extra parentheses out so it's not going to get more cluttered. So I'm going to group these two together so you can see that they have something in common here, which I'm going to factor out, which is the g of x. Okay, so this thing is like g of x, okay, times what? F of x plus delta x. Where am I going with this? Well, how did I get here? That's what I actually mean. You got f of x plus delta x times g of x divided by g of x. What do you have left? F of x plus delta x. And now you got a minus here, minus and a plus, you got a minus. So f of x, g of x divided by g of x. What are you going to have? F of x. Okay? All right. And then I'm going to group the other two, this term and this term. So it's going to be the second and third terms. I'm going to group them together, factoring out the f of x. Now, this time I'm going to factor out minus f of x. You guys are going to understand why later. So I'm factoring out now minus f of x. Okay? Now, g of x plus delta x times minus f of x divided by minus f of x. Well, you got a minus divided by another minus. That's a plus in here. And what's left? G of x plus delta x. So g of x plus delta x. Okay? And now the other term. You got minus f of x, g of x divided by minus f of x. It's just, hold on. Yeah, actually, sorry. It's going to be the second and third terms. So it's going to be f of x, g of x divided by minus f of x. So you're going to have a minus g of x in here. Minus g of x. Okay. And let me think here. You got to close this parentheses. And you got to put a fraction here. And now you're going to copy the denominator. So it's going to be g of x plus delta x, g of x. Okay. Now, guys, as I run out of room, I'm just going to start erasing things from the top. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do now because I'm running out of screen real estate here. Okay. Erase this, erase these little things. Okay, so now what do you have? Well, you see, you have the limit of this whole thing. 1 divided by delta x that multiplies the whole fraction. Okay, now as delta x approaches 0, let's think, as delta x approaches 0, is it going to alter g of x? No, this thing right here, okay, this g of x in here is not going to alter at all. Why? It's not going to be altered at all because it doesn't depend on delta x. Delta x is changing from something different than 0 and it's approaching 0. What bearing does that have on g of x? Nothing. G of x just depends on x, not on delta x. Now, what do you have here? You see, you have, well, let me explain this to you guys. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna invert these two things because you see, you got a fraction here, okay, and you got another fraction here. I can change these denominators. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the delta x out of here, and I'm gonna put it in here. And I'm gonna get this thing here, okay? And well, am I gonna put it over there divided by, nah, that's a bad idea. I'm just gonna go back to what it was. All right. Anyway, now you have this 1 times this whole thing, and you have the delta x times this whole thing. Is g of x going to be altered in this limit? No. So this g of x is just a constant. So we repeat it. Okay. And what do you have here? In this term right here, this stuff, and I'm talking about this thing, okay? Keep your eye on this. F of x plus delta x minus f of x divided, because it is divided. It's being divided by this delta x in here. As delta x goes to 0, it's the limit, okay? What is this? This is the derivative of f of x. So I can say times the derivative of f of x. And now you got a minus, which is this minus here, okay? F of x as delta x is approaching 0 doesn't alter f of x. So f of x in this case is just a constant. F of x. And now you have g of x plus delta x minus g of x divided by delta x, because this delta x is dividing everything too. Divided by delta x as delta x approaches 0. Well, that's just a derivative of g of x. Okay? So you took care of this numerator. This big numerator here is just this. Fine. And now this, okay, so you took care of that stuff. Now, what else do you have? You have g of x plus delta x times g of x as delta x approaches 0. As that delta x approaches 0, the denominator, this thing right here, okay, is just going to become what? G of x plus 0 times g of x. And what is that? That's g of x times g of x, which is what? G of x squared. So the denominator becomes g, well, it's not g of x squared, it's g squared of x, right? G squared of x. You can do this, you can put it in here, or you can put a parenthesis around the whole thing and put the 2 in here. You just can't put the 2 over here, because otherwise people are going to think that it's the g of x squared, and it's not, okay? What you actually have is the g of x times the g of x, so it's the g squared of x. Or the whole thing, g of x, and you get the g of x and you square it. So either way is fine. So that's the differentiation for the division rule, because you had the product rule in the previous video, and now you have the division rule. And the exercise, I'm just going to keep them to the next video. Okay, that's it.